I wish I started investing when I was like 2 years old because I'd be a millionaire by now. Unfortunately, that's not the case and probably not the case for most people, honestly, who's thinking about investing at that age. However, if you have kids in your life, could be your niece, your nephew, your grandson, your own children, it's never too late to help them get ahead and set them up for a brighter financial future. Now, there are lots of great ways to get set up for your kids, saving, investing, and learn really good money habits that will set them up for life. And that's what I want to talk to you about in today's video. I'm going to cover 5 different accounts that you can set up for your kids and talk about the pros and cons of each. I'll also touch on something that's one of my favorite ways to invest. Finally, I'm going to share a step-by-step plan of how to invest for your kids with as little as $3 a day and make your kids a millionaire. If that sounds good to you, check out today's video. Now in Canada, there are several accounts that you can get started with investing for your kids. The first one is RRSP. I know it may come as a surprise, but the moment your kid starts making income, like in a summer job, they can actually open an RRSP as long as they file their taxes. The RRSP is traditionally known as you sock away money in this account so that you save for retirement. But for kids, there are pros and cons, and the pros are really, really interesting. First pro is that you can withdraw that money for your child and help him or her buy their first home as part of the home buyer's plan. Secondly, you can withdraw that money early to help your kids' education costs, which is called a lifelong learning plan. Third pro is that the moment they start making money, filing your taxes, they can start gaining contribution room. But there's cons. 2 key cons are withdrawal taxes. If you're not using it for home buyer's plan or life learning plan or for retirement, unfortunately, any money you withdraw will get taxed as income. Number 2, there's contribution limits to 18% of the income that you make that year. So if your kid only makes $4,000, only 18% of that is contribution room in their RRSP. Let's use a quick example to show the power of gaining contribution room really early in life. There's Bob and there's Joe. Both make $4,000 a year mowing lawns. And Bob, parents decide to file his income taxes every single year. So starting the age of 13, 18% of his $4,000 was starting to grow in his RRSP contribution room, while Joe's parents didn't want the hassle of filing taxes. Now fast forward, at age 22, both of them graduate from university and have full-time jobs. Because Bob's parents have been filing the taxes ever since he was 13 years old, over those 9 years, he has $6,480 of RSP contribution for Bob by the time he graduates, while Joe doesn't have any RSP contribution room. Personally, for me, I'm definitely filing my kids' income taxes as fast as possible the moment they start making money for the summer. The second one is your registered education savings plan. This is a savings account specifically to save for your children's education costs. Now, here are some pros and cons. Pros is that the government will give you free moolah grant contribution of up to $7,200 for you just contributing money into the RESP. Number 2, it is tax deferred growth. So any money you invest in your RSPs and you just leave in there, it grows tax-free all those years. Another advantage is that there is so much flexibility investing opportunities within our ESP. You don't have to simply just hold it into guaranteed investment certificates, which I think a lot of people do, including myself, really early when my kids were babies. But you can actually invest in stocks, into index funds. Basically, you can invest that money for your child. Now, here's some cons with the RESP. There's only 50,000 lifetime contribution room per beneficiary. Number 2, if those RESP funds are used in a way that's not for schooling, like it doesn't include rent or housing costs or tuition or anything like that, well, CRA is going to look at you really, really closely. Next account is the tax-free savings account, which is essentially an account that you plop money in and grows tax-free, and you can withdraw it for whatever way you want to use it for, whether it's education, whether it's to take a gap year, or for retirement. It's up to you because anything withdrawn is tax-free. Now, here's some pros and cons. Pro is, well, any money that grows in it is tax-free. Number 2, there is so much flexibility in the account. You can use it to pay for education costs, for a car, for a home. There's so much flexibility with a tax-free account. Now, here's some cons. Unfortunately, your kid has to turn 18 in order to open a tax-free savings account. Number 2 is that there are contribution limits. For example, in 2024, you can only contribute up to $7,000 in the first year. The next account is called the informal trust account. Simply speaking, it's an account that you can open up in any brokerage and you invest on behalf of your child until the child is no longer minor, and that account can be transferred over. It can hold assets, it could be invested in stocks and real estate, etc. Now here's some pros and cons. The first pro is there is no contribution limit. You can invest and put money in on behalf of the minor as long as you have the money. Second pro is there is so much flexibility. You can invest in whatever you want, like real estate, like stocks, like index funds, mutual funds, real estate, investment trusts, whatever you want on behalf of the minor. Now here's some cons. Unfortunately, because this is a non-registered account, the first con is there are tax implications. If you invest in the account and it starts collecting dividends, you get taxed on the dividends. Unfortunately, you will have to pay. But the moment the minor turns of age, whatever that majority age is in Canada, it could be transferred to that person and it'd be taxed at his or her hands, which is really low, like probably tax-free at that point. But fortunately, during that time, the moment you start investing in this account and it starts collecting dividends or some type of income within the account, not capital gains, I'm talking about income like dividends, then it gets taxed at your income rate if you're managing the account. Now, the second con, there is no control that the kid has before they turn of age, a majority age. So if you want your child to learn how to invest really early in life, unfortunately, you can't let him or her manage their own account. Now, the fourth account is the youth savings plan. Essentially, you can open a savings account for your kid and the kid can manage it. Here's some pros and cons. First pro, opening a savings account is like a no-brainer for your child. If he or she are starting to make money, then they're learning how to save and just grow their money in a savings account. Number 2, there are no fees and no minimum limits. So you can open a savings account and deposit $10, $50 without getting dinged every single month with banking fees. But there are some cons. Unfortunately, with these youth savings account, the interest rates are very low. Don't expect to get high yield or high interest savings within these accounts for minor. Number 2, there isn't a lot of options. Once you plop money in a savings account, there isn't much you can do with it other than withdrawing it and using it for spending purposes. But it's really hard to invest within this account. Now, I'm gonna share my favorite way for investing for your kids. Before my kids were born, I was already heavily investing into real estate. In fact, I bought and sold properties, up to 14 properties over a 10-year period. And during that time, I also intentionally bought properties for my kids. So one of the ways I did this in an approachable way is, you know how most people, when they buy a starter home, like a condo, and then they want to upgrade to a bigger home, maybe a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhome, most people will sell the condo and then use that money to buy that townhouse. Well, for me, I decided to hold on to my condo and I still bought that next home. And then I repeated that process for several years because I wanted to keep these properties with the intention of passing one of them to my children. And I've been lucky enough, got twins, so now I have a home for each of my child. Of course, this has to be a situation where you are really good with your money and you have leftover savings. So here's some pros and cons. Pro is that if you can do this, this is like instrumental for wealth generation for your kid, because guess what? Housing costs are just going to get more and more expensive over time. Number 2, you are also letting your kid learn about managing rental properties. So for me, because I had these rentals when they were young, I actually got them to help me paint and do some like house renos and handyman work. So I got them exposed to managing rental properties. But of course, here's the cons. The cons is that obviously there is more work involved. This may not be your cup of tea because it could be deemed as a part-time job for you. Another con is it takes money. If you're someone who's able to afford and save a down payment for the next home and the next home without having to sell the last home, well, this may be a great strategy for you. Now, as promised, I'm going to share my step-by-step plan to help make your kids a millionaire with as little as $1,000. Step 1, you make an initial investment. The moment your baby is born, you invest $1,000 into the account for your baby. Just consider this as an expense for delivering your baby. Step 2, make monthly contributions. Deposit $50 every single month, consistently, every single year. And invest that money into some boring index fund, which is like tracking a basket of companies. Very popular index fund in Canada is VOO or VFE, which tracks 500 of the biggest companies in the world. This is one of the no-brainer ways to investing for your kid. So what I like is VOO if you have US funds and VFE if you have Canadian funds. Step 3, every time your kid has a birthday, then you deposit $500 as a gift for your child every single year. So every single year, you'll be contributing $1,100 for your child. Let's see how these numbers play out. If you stop contributing at 18, your child will have $55,000 in the account. Say you just let it sit and do nothing until the kid turns 50, well, that's over $1 million. And fast forward, by the time they're 63, it's grown even more, which is amazing. Bonus, I'm gonna add a second plan. I'm gonna show you a simpler way without the hassles of having to contribute every single month. All you have to do, the moment your baby is born, you contribute $6,500 into investment account, and you invest it into 500 of the boring companies in the stock market, which is the S&P 500, and my two favorite ticker symbols is VOO and VFE. VFE is just using Canadian money. VOO is using US money. You invest $6,500 just once into that index fund and just set it and forget it. Fast forward, by the time your kid turns 65 years old, that will be over $1 million, assuming you have an annual rate of return of 8%. That's it. Invest once, $6,500 into investment account, buy an index fund like the S&P 500 and set it and forget it, and then just don't let the kid touch the money until they're 65 years old. Now here's a quick rule of thumb. For every $1,000 you invest for your child, that's equivalent to 150 grand by the time your kid turns 65 and decides to retire. Hello everyone, if you have any questions about investing for your kids, let me know in the comments below. I read every one of them. By the way, if you want to learn how to make passive income, basically make money while you sleep, then you definitely want to check out this video about how to make $1,000 a month in Canada. Anyways, I hope to see you next video. Bye.